are you doing?
I'm wonderful. It's book launch day, so I'm in a great mood.
Let's compare that to television show launches. Is it one and the same, or is it how does that get into your creative spirit? Because you put a lot of energy into this book. Now you get to share it with the rest of the world.
It's a little bit different because, on a TV show, you're a part of an ensemble, and that, you're acting on a show. Maybe you didn't write it, maybe you didn't direct it, maybe you didn't produce it, but you're just a part of it in that way. And it's very sweet because you're excited that your work is going to be seen. With a book like this is like deeply personal. So it's like this big moment where finally, I don't know, it's kind of like giving birth to something and then setting it free and hoping that it has the impact that it has, that you hoped it would have.
I like your honesty in the very first page. You pretty much say that, make sure you have your parents' permission before you dive into this. But yet when I go through this book, this is the book I needed when I was a kid. And so you're coming out with this at a perfect time.
Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, I wrote it as the book I needed. I wrote it as the book that I wish somebody would have given me, or the conversations that I wish somebody would have had with me, that I wish my dad would have had with me. I didn't have an older brother, but I can't imagine an older brother having these with me. So I kind of wrote it as the trusted friend, older brother that I didn't have.
And
because growing up is really hard.
It is. I'm a daily writer, so I've been daily writing since July of 1994. To go back into those pages and see what it was like to be a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, and things like that, you sit there and you go, oh my God, I've always been a student. And I think maybe that's the reason why I'm pulled into this book, because you yourself have always been a student as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you've been writing all that time. But yeah, we're always a student. But the difference is when we're young, when we're in middle school and our bodies are changing and our testosterone is raging through us, we don't know what's happening. And if nobody's talking to us about what's happening, because everybody has shame around their own experiences, and we just feel like we're stuck on an island alone, and that we're the only ones it's happening to. Well, and so it's really important to share these things so that young kids know that they're not alone, and help them have a roadmap to how to navigate their masculinity and grow up to not just be great men, but great humans.
We talk about building the mind, body, and soul, and you work on the sensitivity muscle, saying that it's the easiest way to actually become cool. And I love that, because there's a lot of people that don't understand what sensitivity is. They would rather do what radio people do. We just sit there and do little pot shots and think it's funny. No, people are sensitive.
Oh yeah, we're innately sensitive, but that's a beautiful thing. I mean, sensitivity is the thing that allows us to experience joy and pleasure. I mean, look, if we're not sensitive, we can't enjoy sex.
You're right.
Sensitivity is everything. Like we need to be able to experience the world around us, and it's thanks to our sensitivity that we can. You can't be in a relationship without having sensitivity. It'll never last.
Right.
You can't have friendships without sensitivity. They're not real friendships. They're not rooted in anything. So our sensitivity is actually one of our greatest attributes as human beings. But unfortunately, as boys, we're socialized to believe that our sensitivity makes us weak. So we drown that out and we act, we perform, we pretend like we're not sensitive. But in reality, we really are.
Isn't the first step being smart enough to ask questions? And the reason why I bring that up is because I talk with universities, future broadcasters, and one of my main goals is you're not asking questions. You think that this is just going to land on you. If you don't start asking questions, you're not going to understand the journey.
Oh, well, life's about asking questions, of course.
Yes.
I think it's less about being smart enough to ask questions, but being smart enough to admit that you don't know the answer. And I think that's really what it comes down to, because as boys, we're taught that we're supposed to know the answer. Fake it till you make it, right?
Yep.
And it's really about being smart enough to know what you don't know. That's what makes you dangerous. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you, successful in the end, is being willing to admit you don't know the answer. That's how you learn.
See, and I love being in that place, because that's where the exploration begins. And it's not going to Google to get another high. What it is, it's going into a dictionary to find out if I'm using these words correctly. And that right there builds up the confidence. And then all of a sudden, you don't have to know your worth. What you do is you already know that your presence is going to help change someone's life.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. But it comes from curiosity and from knowing what you don't know.
So how do parents introduce this book to their young guys? And I want to put young girls too, because I think this book is also for girls, that they could learn a lot from this as well.
Oh man, I would love young girls to read it, because then they would understand boys.
Yes.
Right? And then, you know, hopefully end this whole women are from, you know, men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing. I think parents should read it themselves, honestly. I think that parents should read the book, and then they should pass it down to their kids, and they should, you know, read it with them. I want to see young boys and girls and parents getting closer together. And there's going to be parts of this book that make parents deeply uncomfortable, because they're like, oh, my son's not old enough or ready to talk about that stuff. But they are. If you have a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old, you have no idea the things that they are exposed to when they leave your house.
Yeah.
So we have to stop being so naive, and we have to be willing to get uncomfortable, because that's how we grow. And I think it's going to bring a lot of people closer together, a lot of families closer together. Hopefully it would melt my heart if a father and a son read this book together. Because I believe the father would have so many memories of what it was like to be 11 and 12 and 14 and 16. And it would help that father have so much more empathy for what that boy is going through and what that boy is dealing with. Because so many fathers, I believe, are fathering from a place of fear.
Yeah.
Remembering, like, the trauma of what it was like to be a boy. That's why we want our boys to be hard. Right? That's why we want to toughen them up, because the world is going to beat the crap out of them, and we know that. But we're forgetting about what was underneath all of that toughness. What was underneath all of that? We don't want the world to make us hard so that we lose our sensitivity.
That's it.
So fathers remembering what it was like to be that young boy and going and reading my stories and thinking about their own versions of this, I think will really help them navigate what their boys are going through in puberty and adolescence.
Yeah. You know, you cover that with Sex 101, and you know, you talk about, you know, some people are lucky enough to have their parents talk about it, other people get it from their friends and things like that. One of the things that really has kind of affected me is when I see a 12 or a 15-year-old with a smartphone, you know they're already looking at porn, and that's how they learn about sex, which is not fair to women, because that's not the way it really is.
It's not fair to women, but it's also not fair to those young boys.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
I believe that when a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old finds porn for the first time, that's a version of sexual assault.
Yep.
Because their brains are not ready for the images that they are digesting. And that's what happened to me. And it happened to me, and I'm 38 and still dealing with the repercussions of all those neural pathways that were carved in my brain far before I was ready for it.
So true.
And kids are finding porn at 8 years old now. Let's be honest. They're seeing things they should never, ever see. At no time in the history of humanity and human evolution has a man or woman ever been able to go online and see thousands of images of naked people, naked women. Men in 10 minutes can see more naked women than in the entire course of evolution a man was able to see in his whole life.
So true.
That is not healthy. It's not healthy. And it's not healthy for our young boys. So we have to learn what sex is and what it isn't. And sure, if someone is all about porn, that's fine. But I need people to understand what it does to the brain. And also, so long as you understand what you're doing, and as an example, like I talk about social media, understanding that you are a user, that you are in a game, right? It's a gamified version of the human experience. If you are inside of it and you know you're playing it, that's one thing. But oftentimes, the kids, young people, are being played. And that's what's not okay.
Wow. Justin, you got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for your passion and excitement for a book like this and for helping get the word out. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Be brilliant today, okay, sir?
Yes, sir. You too.
You bet.